Have you ever felt stuck? Like you're living in a place you didn't choose, in a season you didn't ask for? Maybe it's a job that drains the life out of you, but you can't leave just yet. Maybe it's a long-term illness, a city you don't feel at home in, or a season of singleness that has stretched on for years. It's that feeling of being in a cosmic waiting room. You know this isn't the final destination, but the departure board is blank. In these moments, many of us turn to a beautiful, familiar verse for comfort, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. It's a powerful promise. It feels like a guarantee that God has a wonderful escape plan ready to go. A promise that this difficult chapter is about to end, and the real story is about to begin. But what if I told you the true power of this verse isn't about the escape plan? What if it's actually a roadmap for how to live with purpose, right in the middle of the place you'd rather escape? What if God's plan for your future starts with finding your footing in the messy, uncomfortable present? To understand this, we have to travel back in time. Not just to a different country, but to a different world. Imagine being a citizen of Jerusalem around 600 BC. Your entire world, your identity, is tied to this city and its magnificent temple. It's the place where God dwells. It's the center of the universe. Then, the unthinkable happens. The Babylonian Empire, a ruthless superpower, sweeps in. They conquer your land, ransack your city, and haul you and thousands of your countrymen away into forced exile. You are now a refugee, a prisoner of war, in the heart of your enemy's capital, Babylon. A city of foreign gods, foreign customs, and overwhelming power. You've lost everything. Your home, your freedom, your temple. The question burning in everyone's mind is, how long, Lord? How long until we can go home? And in this atmosphere of despair and confusion, prophets begin to pop up. False prophets. They come with a message everyone wants to hear. They say things like, don't worry. This is just a temporary setback. God is about to crush Babylon. We'll be back home in 2 years, tops. Don't even bother unpacking. It's a message of easy, instant hope. It's what everyone is clinging to. And then, a letter arrives. A letter from the prophet Jeremiah, who is still back in Jerusalem. And his message is devastating. It's so different from the sugary promises of the false prophets. Before he even gets to the famous verse 11, Jeremiah delivers a set of instructions from God that must have felt like a punch to the gut. Starting in verse 5, God says this, build houses and settle down, plant gardens and eat what they produce. Marry and have sons and daughters, find wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, so that they too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number there, do not decrease. Can you imagine hearing this? God isn't saying pack your bags for a quick return. He's saying, unpack. Settle in. This is going to be a while. He's telling them to build houses in the land of their captors. To plant gardens in foreign soil. To get married and have children and grandchildren. In Babylon. In other words, he's telling them to live. To build a life, right in the heart of their exile. This wasn't a 2-year problem. Jeremiah had already told them the exile would last for 70 years. A whole lifetime. Most of the adults who heard this message would never see Jerusalem again. Their children, and even their grandchildren, would be born and raised as Babylonians. This is the context, the hard, uncomfortable, long-term reality, into which the beautiful promise of verse 11 is spoken. After telling them to settle in for the long haul, God says something even more radical. Verse 7, also, seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. The original Hebrew word for peace and prosperity here is shalom. Seek the shalom of Babylon. Pray for your enemy. Work for the good of the system that holds you captive. This is utterly revolutionary. It reframes their entire situation. Their exile isn't just a punishment to be endured, it's a mission field to be engaged. They aren't supposed to sit by the rivers of Babylon and just weep, waiting for rescue. They are called to be a blessing, to be agents of God's shalom, right where they are. Their purpose wasn't on pause. Their purpose was in Babylon. And it's only after all of this, after the command to build, to plant, to marry, and to seek the welfare of their new city, that God delivers the promise we all know and love. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for shalom and not for harm, to give you a future and a hope. Do you see the difference? The promise wasn't that they would avoid Babylon. The promise was that God had a plan for them in Babylon. The hope in the future wasn't a secret escape hatch. It was the assurance that their lives in exile had meaning. That building houses and planting gardens and raising families in this foreign land was part of God's good and perfect plan. His plan was to give them shalom, wholeness, well-being, peace, right in the middle of their brokenness. So, how does this ancient story speak to us today, in our own personal Babylons? It tells us that God's primary instruction for us when we feel stuck is not to just wait, but to build. What does that look like? If you're in a job that feels like a dead end, building a house might mean choosing to become the most excellent, helpful, and integrous employee on your team. It means seeing your workplace not as a prison, but as a community where you can bring light and order. If you're in a season of loneliness or you're new to a city, planting a garden could look like investing in your local community. Volunteering, joining a club, inviting a neighbor over for dinner. It means putting down roots, even when you feel transient. And that radical command to seek the shalom of the city? It means we are called to actively work for the good of the very situations that cause us pain. To pray for that difficult boss. To contribute positively to the company culture you don't like. To be a source of peace in a dysfunctional family. It means shifting our prayer from, God, get me out of here, to God, how can you use me right here? Question mark. This is so hard. It goes against every instinct we have. Our instinct is to retreat, to complain, to isolate ourselves and just survive until things get better. But God's plan for our hope and a future is often wrapped up in our willingness to engage with the present. Think about it like this. Imagine you're on a long, unexpected layover at an airport. You were supposed to be on a tropical beach, but your flight got cancelled, and the next one isn't for 12 hours. You have two options. You can sit at the gate, miserable, staring at your luggage, replaying your bad luck over and over, refusing to eat or talk to anyone. You can just endure. Or, you can accept the situation. You can find a comfortable chair, buy a good coffee, read that book you've been meaning to finish, and maybe even strike up a conversation with the person next to you, who might be having an even worse day than you are. You can choose to live in the layover. Jeremiah 29 is God telling us to live in the layover. Because He knows something we often forget, purpose isn't found in a destination. It's found in the journey. The hope and a future God promises isn't a place we arrive at. It's a person we walk with. The hope isn't that our circumstances will magically change overnight. The hope is that God is present and at work in our current circumstances. His plan is to shape our character, to deepen our faith, and to use us for His glory, right now. Not a year from now, when we get the promotion. Not 5 years from now, when we're finally married. Right now. The incredible irony is that by seeking the shalom of our Babylon, we often find our own. When you focus on being a blessing to others in your difficult job, your own work becomes more meaningful. When you invest in your community even though you feel lonely, you start to build the very connections you crave. When you live with purpose in the waiting itself becomes purposeful. This doesn't mean we stop hoping for change. The exiles in Babylon never stopped longing for Jerusalem. It's okay to long for a better future. It's okay to pray for healing, for a new job, for a spouse. But our hope can't be held hostage by our circumstances. Our hope has to be anchored in the character of the God who makes the promise. The God who is sovereign over Babylon. The God who orchestrates history. The God who can bring life from death and purpose from exile. So, if you feel stuck today, if you feel like you're living in a foreign land, hear this ancient letter as if it were written to you. First, acknowledge where you are. This is your Babylon. It's real, and it's hard. Second, start building. What is one small way you can plant a garden where you are? How can you build a little corner of order and beauty in the midst of your chaos? Third, seek the shalom of your city. Who is one person you can pray for? What is one way you can contribute to the well-being of the people and places around you, even the ones that cause you pain? And finally, hold on to the promise. Not as a promise of immediate escape, but as a promise of God's constant, active presence. He knows the plans He has for you. Plans for your ultimate wholeness and peace. Plans to give you a future filled with hope, a hope that begins today, right where you are. Your life is not on hold. Your purpose is not in the future. It's right here. In Babylon. Go, and start building.